Right. Okay.
Why is funding the Serious Fraud Office so important at the moment?
Well, it's actually should have been dealt with a bit earlier, in my opinion, but it's very important because when I look at the number of cases that they're having referred to it, the number of cases they're actually investigating, and the prosecutions that they're taking, we need to take this very seriously. We've also seen some of these shovel-ready projects. There's a lot of contracting that will be going on. It's very important that the Serious Fraud Office has the ability to actually investigate where it needs to, because we've seen some of their very high profile and also successful prosecutions have actually been in the contracting area, particularly around big contracts between local government and contractors.
Because the last national government have increased the funding, what kind of gradually grew over the 9 years, but did it have any big step change like this would be?
Well, I think this is the time to do it. This is a particular passion of mine that we beef this up. And when I had a look at the fact, look, police have $2.2 billion budget. Serious Fraud Office is $12.7 million. I mean, it's when you've got the lead agency, when you're the lead agency for bribery and corruption, it is very important that we deal with this and give it the support it needs. It's also really important we see all these big infrastructure projects that we are talking about, but also and that we are committed to, but also even the current government has talked about. It is important that they have those the ability to actually undertake investigations properly.
A number of political parties have found themselves caught up in the SFO investigations over the past term. Would you like to see the SFO put more focus on in that area? Look,
I'm not going to tell them where to put their focus, but it's very clear that I want them to look at and put a focus on exactly what one of their mandates is, which is anti-corruption and bribery. So in terms of that, I'm not going to tell them who to investigate or how to investigate them. Tempting as some people might think it is. Yeah. No, what it does have, it's the fact that I'm the leader of the National Party. I take this very seriously. I've been their minister before. I know that they have some very good outcomes. But when I look at the powers that they have, they're clearly the agency that needs the money to get these investigations going.
When has the SFO ever been an election issue before?
Well, I'm making it one. I'm making it one because I want bribery and corruption to be dealt with.
Would probably look at that.
What's that?
And a Senate would probably look at that and go, there's a pretty high profile case in front of them at the moment.
Well, I think there's several high profile cases. The fact is that they need this funding. And I've always found it very difficult to get them extra funding, partly I think because of the fact that they are based in Auckland, not in Wellington, and they're definitely not part of the Wellington bureaucracy. So I think they always get to be seen as somewhat of an outlier when it comes to a budget. They're certainly not, part of the in crowd with Treasury and others. I think that they do an excellent job, but they just need more resources.
Do you suspect there's corruption in politics that's not being...
Well, there may well be, but I'd also say that there is definitely corruption, I suspect definitely corruption in some of the contracting that's gone on. We've seen it over the years. I can't quite remember the name of the case now, but it was certainly involving someone who was doing contracting with Auckland Council. There was that was a big case, a lot of money involved. And these are the sorts of contracts with the infrastructure projects in particular that people need to know that someone can actually take some action.
Should there be really corruption in the provincial growth part?
Well, I can't say that, but I think that people have seen some very interesting decisions made, but I have no evidence of corruption.
Do you feel that
just stupidity, actually.
Yep. Investigation into Labour in New Zealand first before the election, or is it too close?
Look, it's entirely up to them. I can't make a call on that. It'd be wrong for me to do so.
Do you think the high ranking that New Zealand gets in anti-corruption kind of index and stuff, is that mostly just a kind of a smokescreen because people don't see it because it's so low investigated, or was it not quite that simple?
Do you know, it's a really good question. So it's only a perception index, and that's the problem. If you don't look for it, you won't see it. You won't find it. And certainly I think if you don't, it's only perception. It's done by Transparency International. It's a survey, And I think that we, as a country, become very complacent very quickly, particularly when we see ourselves near the top or at the top of world rankings. We think, gosh, aren't we doing it all well? I think it's very important that we scratch beneath the surface.
You said something yesterday about Nikki Hager meeting his maker. Can you just clarify exactly what you mean?
Well, we're all going to die one day, Henry, and we're all going to have to justify our actions.
And
She did the problem.
No, but I do know we're all going to die one day. I always think, Jenna, that every day we're alive is a day to be gloried.
Is it healthy to wish death upon your enemies?
No, nobody is. Maybe you, I think you were reading too much into it. You are being, you were jumping.
Are you just saying that when he does meet his end, that he will have to justify his actions? Is that kind of what you're speculating on?
If you're a Christian, you do believe that. Yep.
Is it okay to say which way, is it okay for Jacinda Ardern to say which way she's going to vote on the euthanasia referendum but not on cannabis?
Yes, I think it is. I have noticed that there is a difference in Miss Ardern's attitude towards her wishes around supposedly influencing New Zealand voters. We know where she's voting on the referendum on end-of-life choice. She's voting for it. We don't know where she's voting on the cannabis, sale and use of recreational cannabis. She owes a duty to New Zealanders to tell them what her views are. I've made it very clear I am voting for the end-of-life choice bill, and referendum rather, and I'm voting against the cannabis one.
Labor is today going to announce that they want to triple the emergency grant for low-income people who need to go to the dentist from $300 up to $1,000. Do you think that's a good idea?
I think many people would say that that was a good thing to do, and I think it's like I look at people who have poor dental health, and I think it is a great, say it's a very, rather than great, it's a real difficulty for people to overcome when they're going for a job and they've got rotten teeth. I tell you, I just think it's, I don't think it's a bad thing.
So why does the National do that?
Well, just we focused on young children. We focused on the fact that many of the people that you're talking about never had proper dental health when they were young. And as you know, dentists and dental help and dental nurses are free for anyone in New Zealand under the age of 18. And yet about a third of those who should be accessing it are not accessing it. So we thought we'd put the effort into young people and hopefully build up those an understanding of dental health from there.
How would you rate their delivery on health as a government?
Well, ask any of the cancer patients who can't get the cancer drugs. You know, we've put a $200 million cancer drug fund dedicated to those patients and the fact that they now can't get the drugs that they can get if they were in Australia. That's simply not good enough. So actually I think that there are parts of what they've done would be fine, other parts very poorly, and certainly in terms of cancer drugs, very poorly.
Just following last night's poll, which has Labor unable to govern alone, are you concerned that some national voters may abandon the party and vote strategically to lift Labor's vote, so the Greens have no role in forming the next government?
The very strategic vote for any national voter is a national party vote and a national electorate vote. That is the best strategic vote, except in
It's not
Epsom.
very strategic when there's no pathway to power for national.
Well, no, there absolutely is. I think people can see that the centre-right is coming up and the centre-left and the far left are going down. So I think it's a very strategic thing to do. People should always understand that most New Zealanders do not want a far-left government dictated by people who think that tax is love.
The support for the centre-left isn't going down.
Oh, yes, it is.
Support for Labor's dropped by 1 point, the Greens are up 1 point, it's the same.
Depends which poll you're looking at. It's very clear that they're going down and
So you're
the centre-right is going up.
polls.
Tell you what, the only poll that matters is the poll on election day, and that's what I'm focused on.
You raised the spectre of the Labor Green government as quite a scary prospect for New Zealand. Do you think the prospect of a national ACT government could be scary for anyone?
No, I don't think so at all. I think that if you look at the fact that James Shaw has this morning been on Morning Report on Radio New Zealand saying that being a Deputy Prime Minister would be one of their negotiating positions and presumably a bottom line, along with whatever it was Julianne Genter said the other day about a bottom line, which James Shaw was quickly trying to wind back, which was, what was that one about? Oh, a wealth tax. So yeah, I think it's a pretty scary outlook for people.
Can you roll out?
Sam will be Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, those are negotiations that are still to be had.
So you're not ruling that out
Oh no, I'm not ruling it out. It's a negotiation still to be had. I'm not in that lucky position yet to do that.
Can you rule out cutting the minimum wage, as David Seymour has?
Yes, absolutely.
Do you plan to visit the Bay of Plenty or Tauranga this campaign, or are you avoiding those areas given the MP's recent history?
No, in fact, I think I'm due to visit Tauranga very soon, actually. Maybe, I think it's next week, isn't it?
Have you ever looked down the ACT party list and see who might be sitting alongside you?
I haven't, and there's a reason. I'm focused on the National Party, the national votes, because that's what I believe a national led government is the best way for New Zealand. I'm focused on the people who are our voters, but also on New Zealand generally. I'm not worrying too much about minor parties.
What about interest on student loans? It's also an ad policy about interest back on student loans and to raise the amount that domestic students pay. Can you rule out changing that?
You're trying to get me to have coalition negotiations when we've still got a long way to go. So I'm not going to go and enter into that. What I will say to you is that we need to grow our economy, and the way to grow our economy is to have a national-led government.
With respect, you are pretty much having Labour-Green coalition negotiations out in the public as well, so why can't you be asked those same questions?
Because I'm not the one who's on Morning Report putting down bottom lines, which is what the Green Party co-leader is.
So will you adopt, for instance, the ACT Party's flat tax?
No, we're not going to be doing that, and I'll tell you that straight out. It is really important that we can balance the books. It's also important that we grow our economy, but apart from that, I'm not going to rule in whatever. The fact is the National Party will be, should we be fortunate enough to lead the next government, we will be the major party in government, and we would expect that negotiations will occur at a negotiating table. Well, I think that's entirely up to any relationship that we have in terms of coalition.
What message do you have for the seemingly right-leaning national voters who have gone to support ACT in kind of recent months? What are you pulling them back with, and what do you want to know?
Well, we seem to be pulling people back on the basis that people understand what we're standing for, and that we have some very, very forward-looking policies for the economy, and also to how to grow it. We can't have any sorts of thinking in the past. It's all about thinking for the future. So our technology policy is a particular favourite. Also, I believe people want to see very firm positions on things that grate with them, whether it's ihumato, whether it's cannabis, whether it's any of those things. You're going to get very clear statements from me, which will be backed up by action.
You're basically cleared your schedule today. Why is that, apart from later on tonight?
No, I have some other work actually today, which I'm not inviting you to, I'm sorry, but I do have other work, and sometimes you do have to do those other things. Thank you.
What type of work?
I'm doing some, I don't know, shall I tell you, just you and me, or we won't tell anyone else? Yeah, I've got some, we're doing some filming, so thanks.
Advanced voting begins in a couple of days. Are you running out of time to convince people to vote for National?
No. And I'm very aware that a lot of people make up their minds on the day in the polling booth. And I'm also very aware that people are coming back to National, and that they believe that we have the best plan for the economy and also for our country.
With overseas voting opening tomorrow, what's your pitch for New Zealanders living in Australia?
Well, would you like to come back to a New Zealand that's actually forward-thinking, going ahead, technology hub for the Pacific? Would you like to do that? Because we're the party for you.
Is Australia not forward-thinking enough?
Oh, well, I think we are, because I always back New Zealand over Australia every single day. And I know that that might upset some people, but too bad, I back Kiwis.
Auckland Harbour Bridge closed today. What do you make of that, and what needs to happen?
Well, as we've said, there needs to be a second harbour crossing. We announced this really now, I think now a couple of months ago. And we believe it should be a tunnel. So that takes out the issue of the wind and everything else. I think it's important that in our biggest city that we have more than one way of getting across the harbour. It's just crazy that we are still, talking about sky paths being attached to a structure of the Auckland Harbour Bridge, $350 million, and actually it can't even cope with what it's got now.
What would it mean that the tunnel would be for resilience rather than for congestion?
For both, yep, and it's really important.
Any
Yeah, no, we're very happy for that too, as long as we have the tunnel in place, but we can't have another add-on at the moment.
So it's
to that.
not crazy, it's just that you
No, we wouldn't do it without knowing that the structure could cope. We're clearly that the structure at the moment is a bit dodgy.
What would that tunnel cost?
Oh, we don't know what that would cost yet because it would still need to go through the planning stages.
Can you really?
It would be a lot of money though.
Can you really talk about a debt target, Ben, if you don't know how much you're going to?
Yeah, because obviously there'll be
tolls. It would
tolls.
probably be a percent for debt target, right?
No, it would be obviously the national. We obviously go through the Land Transport Fund, but we would all clearly have to put a lot of money into it. But we don't know what that price is until we actually do that work on it.
Given you're already taking $10 billion out of the national plan, the NTLF, where is that other money going to come from? You're going to have to.
You're looking a long way out. We're saying that we would start work on that in 2028. That's still a long way to go, and we don't know how much it would cost, but we also know that it would be tolled. So we would expect to have public transport and also private transport going through there. It would be tolled, and people would be able to know exactly what they were getting. These things are not built in a year. They are built often over many years, and that's the time to start is, as they say, it takes, what is it, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. It's pretty much the same with the tunnel. If only someone had done it 20 years ago.
You're saying 8 years in the future, that's not.
No,
that's
8
not
years.
tomorrow, is
No,
it?
8 years is when you actually start the work on it. So it takes a long time to actually get the planning, work out what it is that we want, how to do it, and the engineering work. You can imagine would be humongous.
Would you match Labor's agriculture policy?
Well, we'd have to see more about it, but I understand that we can't do everything that we want to do at once. We do think that our focus on youth dental health is the most important at the moment, and we're also very aware that when you've got around about a third of young people not even being taken to the dentist or the dental nurse by their parents or their family, that's pretty devastating, frankly. The best way to look after your teeth in adulthood is to look after your teeth in childhood.
We're in Auckland Central.
Could I take you back to the SFO policy? Just to be clear, is there an issue of corruption? Is there an area of corruption you're particularly concerned about that has prompted this?
Well, it's something I've taken very seriously for some time. We're seeing the corruption. Oh no, I think the contracting with we can see it with very big infrastructure projects, whether National leads the next government or whether Labor does. We're all expecting big construction contracts. It is really important that we have transparency around that and that we are not worrying that there's a whole lot.
That is corruption in the contracting industry.
No, I'm saying there's a lot of money that's being promised, and we need to make sure. I'm not suggesting that there is. I certainly know some has been found in the past, but I am very clear that we need to have an agency that is dedicated to, in particular, corruption and bribery. Other jurisdictions have one. We have one that has extraordinary powers. Why would we not use it properly?
Is it also critical for the Prime Minister to say which way she's going to vote in one way and not the other?
I think New Zealanders will see it for what it is. I don't understand why she suddenly thinks she shouldn't have a view on something which she's clearly been part of making sure the referendum happened. So I don't understand why she has that. You'd need to ask her.
Do you think she's a bit worried about being associated with the losing side on something? I mean, she distances herself from Justin Lester despite his Labour brand.
Poor Justin. Look, I think you need to ask her. I mean, I don't try to pretend to understand what's going on in the Prime Minister's mind.
And you suspect that she votes, you suspect that she will vote to legalise, yeah?
Well, I think she needs to tell us. I think the public needs to know what it is she intends to do.
We were in Auckland Central. Recent polls suggested that the National candidate who was just behind you was trailing the Labor candidate by quite a bit. Do you think that would still be the case if Nikki Kay was running again?
Well, I think that Emma Mallow is a brand new candidate, as you know, and she's getting out there everywhere. I have huge confidence in her. And, I just think you just got to remember in politics, it's like anything else. You never give up. Thank you.